I'm Anita Woods. I'm the product director at Zava. Previously, I've worked at Wonga, at Google, and at Amazon. And at Zava, we are transforming healthcare by providing an online doctor service where our users can get treatments and advice from our registered doctors and pharmacies in a variety of areas, including men's and women's health. Well, I think when I started at Zava, I was hired to build up the product function, and that is quite a different thing than going into a company where they already have established product roles and product processes and an understanding of the value product brings to a business and how it works with developers. So I think the interesting bit here is understanding what people have already done in areas of product. So obviously we had developers. Some people, like the founder, were involved in aspects of product development. Some people in marketing. So I think the real key has been to show where product can add value in this company, not just take the processes from an old company and put them here. So really being transparent about how we're going to prioritize things, how we work with developers, being open and inviting the entire company to a demo of our software. So those types of things, and to kind of work alongside people who are already doing some aspects of product and kind of bring it all together. Well, I think MedTech is a really exciting area at the moment, and I think partly because there's so much room for innovation. One of the things that I think is going to be really interesting is smart devices. For example, in the case of ongoing conditions like asthma, there are things that are starting to be out there like smart inhalers, where obviously instead of you entering data or telling a doctor how many times you've had an attack, things like that, the device that you use, your inhaler, actually records this information and can give much more sort of accurate and predictive information than you self-reporting a lot of things. So those kinds of things and how we use that data are going to be really interesting, I think, going forward. Another area that I think is really interesting is the AI side, and I think one aspect of really making healthcare much more efficient and convenient for people is if you can use data in terms of how you actually triage something, how you triage some of the types of things that a GP might ask or cover, then actually you get to really make the use of that time with the doctor much more efficient. You know a lot more in advance. You can understand where you need to follow up and where the doctor actually needs to spend a lot of the time, because a lot of the other stuff they may ask and triage and try to narrow it down is actually already out of the way. So I think data and smart use of data can really go a long way with that. The NHS is an amazing service, and I think a lot of the aspects of MedTech and startups actually can be complementary to that. So one aspect is actually how we can share and access data that is in patients' records, and I think that's an area that hasn't really been resolved, but I think there's so much opportunity to really take all of the data from, for example, devices, that combine that with the data that the NHS has from your doctor and GP, obviously with the patient's permission, and you get a much more holistic view of the patient and what you can do in terms of managing ongoing conditions or treatments. So I think there's a lot of room to go forward in that area. And again, I think MedTech services also can provide a really valuable role in taking some of the weight off the NHS if there are kind of more convenient ways for users to be treated and interact with doctors, especially in hours that the NHS doesn't provide, then that takes a lot of the weight to focus the NHS on other areas. So I think they really do work together. It's an interesting question because there's not one set of skills I think that make a good product manager that's the same in every business. So as I think a lot of product managers know, what people think product does varies a lot company by company, but I think there are some attributes that people should have or things in common, and I think one is definitely data and just loving data, whether that's data that is quantitative or qualitative, but just really understanding where you're going to get ideas from, how you can validate them, and how you can show whether something's successful or not is really important. And it also helps bring people along with you in terms of why you want to prioritize certain things or go a certain direction. And I think another thing is you have to balance the strategic bit with the details. So, as you obviously are in a bigger and bigger company, people will fill different roles in product, but I think it's important, as you're doing the strategic aspect, to also not lose sight of day to day, what you're actually improving for the customer. So I think you need to keep that connection with the developers and really, be their advocate as well and understand, what they're actually doing and also give them the vision of what you're working towards on a higher level as well. So they're empowered and they're inspired. I can actually think of two pieces of advice that have stuck with me so far in my product career, and one was definitely to bring people along with you. So the product development process shouldn't just be where there's business people making decisions, and then once those decisions are made, it goes to a developer. What we really need is the developers involved in actually understanding the business priorities and what trade-offs are being made. And then a lot of times as well, of course, they can make suggestions that help you kind of shape, how you may go about developing a certain feature, an epic, or part of, the vision for your product or for your launch. So one of the things I did really practically around that was, before a big product launch, literally have a day where we wrote on index cards the kind of big epics or features we needed to deliver as a minimum product. And we sat there and everyone rearranged and we all talked about what order and what made sense and the dependencies, and the developers had a lot of valuable insight. And we all agreed by the end of the day, me and 20 developers, what we were going to build, and they knew the reasons just as well as I did. The second piece of advice that I think has been really valuable for me is just to know, particularly in a startup, to know your IP and to know where you want to differentiate. So, when you, like in bigger companies as well, but particularly it applies to startups, when you have limited resource and you're really trying to get something out there so customers can use it and you can get the feedback, don't try to build everything from scratch. You have to actually understand your point of difference, the part you're really going to focus on and make better than anything else. And then there's lots of other great tools, plugins, other things that companies have worked on that you can bring in to support you while you focus on the one or two things that really matter. I think my first piece of advice for someone who's just joined a startup is that product is really the bridge between development and all the other kind of stakeholders and functions in a business, and that is even more important in a startup where you have to work out straight away those key relationships and just build the trust of the fact that, especially in a startup, you don't want people to think I'm coming in to control all the development that happens. You want to make it collaborative and be really transparent about what you think the priorities are, why you've come to those decisions, and get the feedback and adjust and sort of adapt and really just give people the confidence that you're on top of that. And also that you're on top of the details. So I think people let you do the big stuff if they know that you've got the small stuff handled, and the small stuff meaning all the details of the site that you care, and you care about the user experience even when it's not a big strategic piece that you're working on, but something that is quite tactical and detailed. So I think you've got to do both and give people that confidence.